3 years after my spinal surgery, I was in Australia and I got the chance to compete in the Australian Championships. And I thought, this is my moment. I'm getting back to what I love to do. I was 48 years old, over double the age of all of the other women that were competing. And I just had this ageless attitude, this mindset that age doesn't matter. This is my dream. This is my goal. And you know what? I won.
Jennie Milton, aka AdrenaJen, is a world-class extreme sports athlete, author, and keynote speaker who helps people overcome fear and build courage using lessons from the mountains. A snow kiting and kite surfing champion, Jennie has turned life-threatening challenges, including spinal and brain injuries, into powerful stories of resilience. She's the author of the inspiring children's book, Gail and the Red Kite of Courage, and she now empowers women through retreats, coaching, and her fear formula for fearless living.
Has your life, your dreams been interrupted? Good news. It is possible to reinvent our lives. People are doing it every day, and some are brave enough to share the struggles, disappointments, and challenges. If you are looking for a new beginning, a do-over, or to rediscover your passion, maybe even find a new one, then grab a cup of coffee and let's talk. Interrupted, Act 2, Reinventing Your Legacy, with your host, Coach Lori.
Jennie Milton, let's just call her AdrenaJen, is our guest, and I am so excited. I don't even know where to start with you. You have so many amazing things to talk about, starting with being an extreme sports person, which is amazing. And then you had several really big interruptions. So tell us what you're doing now and how you're supporting people, and we'll get into those interruptions. Does that sound good?
That sounds perfect. Thank you so much for having me here today, Laurie.
So we did just talk briefly. She's right now on the Oregon coast, where my sister has a place about the next city over, and how much we love the coast. So you're just enjoying that. Do you work from your RV then, or do you take the summers off?
No, I do work from my RV. It's very wonderful these days that you can work from nearly anywhere. My husband and I live the RV life on the Oregon coast in the summertime. You can probably tell by my accent, I'm not native to the USA. I'm originally from down under, down in Australia, but I fell in love with a man from Montana. And I'm so blessed that we get to spend our winters in the mountains, our summers at the ocean, both get to work remotely, but we are here because this is our favorite playground in the summertime. We love to kite surf. Kite surfing is a wind sport where we need the ingredients of high wind. And we also love to ride the waves. And so the Oregon coast is one of the best places to go kite surfing, apart from the cold water that can be a little chilly. But if you've got a good 5'4" wetsuit, it's not too bad at all. We can have a lot of fun out here.
So with the kite surfing, do you need a boat?
No, we don't need a boat. Our surfboard is like our little boat, and then we have a harness on and we're attached to a kite, and the kite tows us around like a sail. My dad was a sailor, so I feel like I'm still using all the things that he taught me when I was a little girl about sailing in the wind. We ride the surfboards and the kite tows you out over the waves. So like a surfer normally dives under the waves, we go over the waves, and then we choose the wave that we want to ride, and the kite tows us into that wave, and then we're able to surf the wave, and the kite tows us back out again, and we just do these laps. It's so much fun.
Wow. And yeah, it is windy on the coast there in Oregon. Yeah.
Yes, it is. We can kite anywhere from about 15 knots up to about 40. I get to play with gale force winds sometimes.
I love it. So I have to ask you, we've seen whales out there. Have you ever been kite surfing and there's a whale right there?
Oh my goodness, yes. In fact, only last week I was kite surfing out there and I got to see a spout, and I went into the beach and I got some photos of my husband out there kite surfing with the whale spouting in the background. A couple of years ago, we were walking back along the jetty and we got to see orcas as well. We've seen the orcas twice. like whole families, their big fin coming through the water. It is just incredible to be out there with Mother Nature and the wildlife that our planet gets to show us. Yeah.
Ugh. And the pelicans there on the Oregon coast are amazing.
Oh my goodness, they are definitely my favorite. I feel like I'm a pelican sometimes because those pelicans are the best surfers out there. They surf the wind that is in front of the wave. And I was out there only a couple of days ago. There was a huge squadron. They're called a squadron of
Yes,
pelicans, and
yes.
and they were surfing the waves with me, and it was just so special.
That is so wonderful. So, one of the things you do is because of all that you've been through, you help women be brave. And that's how I met you, was through Karen Ray, because she has the Being Brave tour. I think for especially women who are getting older, it's easy to kind of shut all that down. So tell us what you do and how you help women.
Well, fear is something that we all face, Laurie. Fear is something we all face in so many different areas of our life, not just sport, but in life, in business. It hits us every day. Courage is a choice, and courage is a skill that we can learn. It's something that I feel very compelled to help people with because it's something that I've learned over my lifetime. If people see the photos on my social media, they might think that I am just fearless. They are so wrong because I was seriously the school scaredy cat. I was the little girl at school who used to run away from any scary challenge in sports class. My mum has the most embarrassing story of me learning to ride a bike. We lived on this street in Australia, and all the kids after school would be riding their bikes, and I was the last kid with my training wheels still on. My dad was a little embarrassed because I wasn't the youngest kid out there. And I was very happy with my training wheels, but he decided he'd take them off. And he used to grab hold of the back of my seat and be running down the street. And don't let go, don't let go, don't let. And I would be in tears. I mean, I was seriously an absolute scaredy cat. And I still feel that fear every time I do something new. So I really relate to people when they talk about fear. For some reason, thank you, universe. The universe has gifted me some incredible experiences where I've needed to overcome fear. As a big mountain skier, I've been caught in an avalanche, which was just so scary. I was lucky enough to go up to a remote village in Alaska where I was working at the school. One night I got charged by a polar bear. When I got charged by that polar bear, it didn't matter how many posters that I had seen saying, don't run, stand there, wave your arms, yell, hey bear, hey bear. What do you think I did when there was a polar bear charging me?
Did you run?
I ran. And all the other people I was with, they all ran too. And so it just proves to us, and it also gave me such a unique experience of feeling that primal fear, the primal fear that's in us that makes us fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. These are all natural reactions that are inside us. We can't get rid of them. In fact, we don't want to get rid of them because they are what keeps us safe. But the problem is we might say, have an opportunity to speak on a podcast, and somebody has a fear of public speaking and they say no and they run away. They allow that primal fear response to come into play even when their lives are not in danger. And so this is something we really need to train ourselves to do and think strategically every time we have that fear and we feel the butterflies and we want to run away or I hear this a lot lately. Have you heard people saying, I'm just stuck. I'm stuck. I can't move ahead. I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck. It's just another way of saying I'm in freeze. I'm frozen. I can't move. Again, it's that primal response. And if we can identify those, if we can be aware that, oh, okay, I feel that coming in, and ask ourselves, are our lives really in danger? It's not going to kill us if we get up on that stage and speak. It's not going to kill us if we send that scary email. It's not going to kill us if we feel that imposter syndrome and we just put our shoulders back and just say what we wanted to say in a room of people. I love helping, especially women who are over 40. I love helping them find their courage. And courage can be trained. I mean, that's what the military do, the police do, extreme athletes. That's what we do. We train our courage and we build our courage step by step by step. And anybody can do that, just to feel a little braver.
It's so interesting because I've always kind of thought people who are, what do we call you, adrenaline junkies,
Yeah.
we think maybe that you're just born that way and you can't live without it. And so for me to hear you say how we train ourselves. So how did you come from scaredy cat to AdrenaJen?
Well, great question. It wasn't just one thing. It was a combination of things. Skiing. I grew up skiing. Now, my parents owned a sports store from when I was born. And believe it or not, yes, we have skiing in Australia. And so in the wintertime, we would ski as a family. They would sell ski gear in the shop. And then in the summers, my dad would sail and we sold windsurfers and skateboards and BMX. My brother and I were the luckiest kids in Australia to grow up always having the latest sporting equipment and doing the latest sports that were in fashion. Now, skiing is such a great sport for building courage. When you start off at a ski resort, you go to the green runs. Now, the green runs, they're not very steep and they're for the beginners. That's where you learn. And even when you're learning, the green runs are scary. They're scary until you learn to do what's called a snow plow, or as a kid, put your skis in the shape of a piece of pizza, and so you put your skis in this triangle, and that allows you to control your speed. And once you learn to slow down, you're like, this is easy. I want to go faster. So all of a sudden, you've built your confidence on the green runs, and you go up the chairlift to the blue runs, and all of a sudden, that fear comes back. They're much steeper. The snow plow doesn't work as well. You need to learn to do turns down the mountain. And doing those turns and using your edges, again, helps you control your speed. And after you do multiple laps, as you do at the ski resort, your confidence builds until eventually you are very comfortable on those blue runs. Then somebody says, okay, Jen, you're ready for the black runs, and you take the chairlift all the way to the top of the mountain, and you get out there and whoosh, that fear comes back because now the runs are steep and there's bumps called moguls everywhere, and there's other skiers going so fast. It's like, oh my gosh. So it's like this roller coaster of building confidence, feeling the fear, building confidence, feeling the fear. And that's the same in everything we do. But eventually, if you keep going, you find the courage to go down those black runs. And once again, you become comfortable. So all of a sudden, that scaredy cat on the green runs has now turned into a confident skier on those black runs, step by step. We can do that in any area of our life or business as well. But I'm just lucky that skiing and the ski resort was my classroom for courage.
Wow. So it is a progression. It's a process.
It's definitely a process. Now, the other thing that helped me go from that natural scaredy cat, and if we talk about men and women, a lot of males are those natural adrenaline junkies. They're born natural sportsmen. They've got this, I don't know, this masculine courage. But as women, we have more of a survival outlook on life because we're the mothers. We're the ones that have to help the family survive, help the children survive. We have this survival instinct, which tends to want us to keep safe. So it's much harder for a woman to find that courage and to take bigger risks. But my brother, who was 2 years younger than me, he was that natural athlete. He was the sportsman. We were always competing, always racing, so competitive. Still to this day, we have this competitive nature. But my brother lost his leg to cancer when he was 9 years old. He came home one day with a sore leg, and the next day we were told something that no family or child should ever hear, and that is he had bone cancer. his very small chance of survival was only going to happen if he had chemotherapy and they amputated his leg. Now, he was 9 and I was 11. And this was a very traumatic time. This was maybe the first time in my life where I was interrupted. Our whole family's lives were interrupted. Everything was interrupted. And the whole focus went on to helping my brother and helping him survive this traumatic time. Now, he did. The chemotherapy went well. The surgery went well. And then he started his life of learning to do everything on one leg. Now, my parents they were friends with ski instructors up at the ski resort who taught people with disabilities. So it didn't take long until they got him back into skiing. In fact, his head was still bald from the chemotherapy. And there he was learning to ski on one leg with outriggers. Outriggers are kind of like crutches with little skis on the bottom. Many people say to me, why doesn't your brother wear an artificial leg? But a lot of people don't realize is that when you're 9 years old and they amputate your leg up very close to the hip, the stump is very small and it doesn't have a lot of muscle in order to move an artificial leg. He was more mobile without a leg. I ended up taking off one of my skis, and so Michael and I were racing around on one ski together. We started doing everything together on one leg, and it became a bit of a challenge. We had this mindset. I love to call it the MacGyver mindset. We just had to figure it out. We just needed to adapt the equipment. There was always a way. And of course, every new sport that came into my parents' store, we had to, how's he going to do it? And so we were into windsurfing in the summer. And so my dad helped Michael build a peg leg out of PVC pipe because he needed 2 legs for balance. They made a stump cover and then a PVC pipe leg, which was waterproof, and he was able to learn how to windsurf, which was incredible. Can you imagine, as a little girl, seeing your own sibling having the courage to try all these things on one leg? All of a sudden, my fear was kind of blown out of the water because I saw him with so much courage. He was setting an example of resilience and courage, and it was amazing. So I really had no excuses. I'm grateful that I was given that lesson at such a young age, that really we have no excuses. And growing up, my brother ended up going to the Paralympics representing Australia in skiing, and he got gold medals in the Paralympics for skiing on one leg. And to this day, he holds Guinness World Book of Records, Olympic gold records, world records. He actually holds the world speed skiing record for a person with one leg. He went 135 miles an hour on one leg down a super steep slope in France. So they were the sort of major ingredients in my childhood that helped me learn how to find courage and believe that anything is possible if we can find that courage.
That's an incredible story. And I love the resilience. It's kind of like not giving up, and that he had his partner in crime, the MacGyver twins, figuring it out. I love that. I love that. Well, you had your own interruptions.
I have, and I think we all do. I think life is full of interruptions or interludes. Every great movie, especially when we were growing up, always had the interlude in the middle where you have to take a break before you get the second half of the story. And that's happened to me multiple times over my life. I remember I was learning to kite surf. I was getting quite good at kite surfing, and my natural competitive side of me wanted to compete in kite surfing events, and I started doing that in my 30s, and I started doing quite well. In fact, I won one event, and this is it. I wanted to be a champion like my brother. But I started getting a sore back, and that back pain got worse. Who can relate? Who can relate to a sore back? I mean, seriously, we've all been through that, but my back pain got worse and worse, and the sciatic pain went down my legs. And eventually I went to see somebody about it, and I was told that I needed to have a spinal fusion. I had to have spinal surgery and a spinal fusion. The vertebrae in my spine were moving, and every time they moved, they pinched the nerves, which sent pain down to my back. And at that point in time, it was a very quick decision. Okay, I don't have a choice. I've got to have that surgery. I know a lot of people are in that, oh, do I have surgery? Don't I have surgery? For me, it was quite a quick decision, and I trusted surgery. They saved my brother. He survived with one leg. My mum had spinal surgery. So I remember sitting in that doctor's office and being extremely scared and disappointed, very unsure of what my life would look like after that. But I also am a big fan of visualization. That's something as athletes learn a lot. Everybody should be visualizing, manifesting what we want. And I looked around his office and I saw a space on the wall. And I thought, one day there's going to be a picture of me kite surfing on the wall, so that every other person that comes in here that's scared and wondering what their life will look at, the doctor can say, well, that's Jennie. She had a spinal fusion and she got back and now she's a champion kite surfer. That was the vision that I had before I went in for my spinal surgery. Of course, the surgery wasn't much fun, and there was a very long period, over 12 months, of not being able to walk or do whatever I wanted, not being able to do my sports. That was definitely a challenge in staying mentally happy, finding joy in some of those things. And that was a time where I couldn't train my body. Well, I was doing my PT, but I was also training my mind. I wanted to be mentally fit so that nothing got me down, even when I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. But it didn't take long until after that I started kite surfing again. 3 years after my spinal surgery, I was in Australia and I got the chance to compete in the Australian Championships. They were close enough to my home that I could drive and compete. And I thought, oh, this is my moment. I'm getting back to what I love to do. And I was 48 years old, over double the age of all of the other women that were competing. And I just had this ageless attitude, this mindset that age doesn't matter. This is my dream. This is my goal. And you know what? I won. I became the Australian kite surfing champion, and I was just so proud of myself. That vision came true.
Wow, that's incredible. And did you put your picture on the wall of the doctor?
I did send him a digital file. Whether he printed it and put it on there, I do not know, because lucky enough, I haven't had to go back to his surgery again. But
wow, that's incredible. One of the reasons I do this podcast is because sometimes I think women get to an age where they're about to retire, or they easily say, oh, I'm getting old. Sometimes I think I'm just a Pollyanna, but I'm like, no, start something new, do a podcast, start a business. It's never too late. I really love stories where women later in life have overcome some really hard things. And often they say, well, how could I not? But we have seen people who don't, who sit down, and that's kind of the end of their life. I mean, I don't know about if you hear this too, but we hear about people who go retire in Florida and they sit down and watch soaps all day. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but I just feel like we have so much to give and to share and to serve. And if somebody was to come and work with you, what does that look like? How do you work with people to help them?
You brought back a great memory, Laurie, which I just have to share to you. When I had my retail store, which was called AdrenaJen Sports, I sold snowboards and rollerblades and skateboards. And I remember walking up to this lady. She was looking at the rollerblade. She picked up one off the wall. She was looking at it. And I went over her and I said, these ones are great. I have them myself. Would you like to try a pair on? And she looked at me and she's like, they're not for me. I'm too old for that. They're for my son. And I looked at her and I tried to guess her age. And she must have been in her early 30s, if that. And I remember her saying, I'm too old for that. And that was when I made that decision that was not going to be my attitude, that I would never say that I'm too old for something. I would just give it a try. I'm out here kite surfing on the Oregon coast with these guys that are in their 70s. And they are my heroes. I'm so inspired by people who are in their 70s and 80s who are kite surfing and skiing. They are my heroes. They are the people that I aspire to be like. Not all of the Red Bull athletes that you get to see on social media. That doesn't inspire me at all. But these guys, oh yeah, we can keep doing things. So I decided that I wanted to teach women how to kite surf and to snow kite. It's a very male-dominated sport, and there's not a lot of women getting into it. And all the women that I would speak to are like, "Oh, I'm just too scared." There were a lot of women who are kiteboarding on the flat water, like in Hood River, which isn't far from here, or flat water locations, and they cruise around and they do jumps and things like that. But as soon as it gets to going in the waves, they have this fear of the ocean. I also teach people how to snow kite. Now, snow kiting, maybe you've never heard of that before. It's where we use the kite, but with skis or a snowboard on our feet. It gets to tow us around. In fact, up in Alaska where I work, the kite can actually tow me up a 3,000-foot mountain to the top. It's like having your own ski lift powered by the wind. The wind is, I call the wind my best friend because we get to play together all the time. I would talk to women. There'd be lots of guys doing the sports. I speak to their girlfriends, and they always had this fear. And so I made the decision one day that I was going to run some women's snow kite and kite surfing camps. I would run a retreat and I would invite these women to come along because women learn differently. We don't want to be just pushed into it or learn the hard way by crashing until we don't crash anymore. We want to learn the easy way, the smart way. And the thing that most people don't realize about kite surfing and snow kiting is it's not about strength. It's about finesse. And what are women good at? Ooh, we are good at finesse. We can, just move the bar a little bit. And people say to me, "Oh, don't you have to be strong to do that sport?" But I teach little girls who are 8 and 9 years old who have like little spaghetti arms, and they rip around doing it. Most of the things that stop us are actually in our mind. And so these retreats that I was running, I realized quickly that it wasn't just about teaching them how to ski and fly the kite. Most of it was about helping them find courage and confidence. And in fact, fear can be the problem. Courage is the solution. And you know what? Confidence is the reward. And when at the end of these camps, seeing these women just so empowered and feeling confident because they had arrived with all this fear, but everybody held hands and everybody was scared together. And over the 3-day camps, at the end of it, they were all skiing and snowboarding with the kites, cruising around, high-fiving each other, feeling just so proud of themselves and so confident that they were doing what they wanted to do, even when it scared them. And this felt just great to me. I mean, to see these women empowered and getting emails coming back to me saying, "Oh, Jen, I thought I was just learning to snow kite, but when I got home, I had all this extra courage. Nothing's scaring me anymore. I tore into my business, or I did this, or I did that, or I did that." I'm like, wow, it's amazing how we can do something and practice getting that courage and then enjoying the feeling of when we overcome our fear. And once we get into that cycle, we can go back and we can do that in other areas of our life too. Whether it's on the mountain, whether it's in the waves, or whether it's on a Zoom call with somebody, helping them overcome their fears and find their courage to do those things brings me so much joy because I can see them making progress.
Oh, I love it. It's like you're having so much fun. You want everyone to come along.
Oh, yes. Come and play with me.
I love it. Now, when you're having your summers in Oregon, do you run camps?
I do. In fact, I was doing a couple of women's camps, and I would always invite other female kite instructors. The bigger the group, I would need some more help. And I found some other women like myself who are passionate about helping other women get into the sport. And so I would do a couple of camps on the Oregon coast. I would do camps in Idaho, Montana, Alaska, and then I'd go back to Australia in the wintertime and do a couple there as well. So for quite a few years, I was constantly running these camps, and it became a very, very successful business, which was amazing until I got interrupted again.
Oh, no.
Oh no, exactly. Oh no. Life was going great until I started getting headache. Who here gets headaches occasionally? I think we all do, but these headaches, they just weren't going away. And I know my body quite well as an athlete. These headaches started to bug me. I just knew something wasn't quite right. And so I went to the doctors and they said, "Oh, you've got migraines. Here's some migraine medication. Take these tablets for 3 days and you'll be right." Well, 3 days later, after all the medications, the headaches weren't any better. And I would go back to the doctors and say, "Hey, that didn't work." And they said, "Oh, you must have had meningitis. Here's some more medication to help with that." Didn't take long until I don't like taking medication until I'm like, "Look, the medications aren't solving the problem. There's something wrong." And they'd started doing some diagnostics, and I sort of asked for more MRIs, CAT scans, anything that they could do. "Please have a look. There's something wrong." Eventually, my doctor had said to me, "Look, we've done all the diagnostics. Here's some morphine." She didn't know what to do apart from sedate me with medication. I never took any of those morphines, but what I did do was I took myself to the emergency room. I advocated for myself and I went to the emergency room and I said, "Look, something's wrong. I just know it. I just know it. I trust my intuition." And all of the work that I've done with my therapist, since this time has made me trust my intuition. And as women, I think we really need to trust our intuition. We're not being paranoid. We just need to listen deep down to that voice. And so I went to emergency. And I said to the doctor, "Look, something's wrong. I've been having these headaches for 5 months. We've done this, and this." And he said, "Okay, I'll go and have a look at your charts." And I'm so grateful that this doctor was very thorough. He went and looked at my charts. He came back and he said, "Well, wow, you've been through the ringer." I said, "Yeah, I have." And he said, "You've had everything except this special CAT scan at the back of your head." I said, "Great, let's do it." And so he sent me off for this CAT scan. And when he came back, he came up to me and he said, "I think I know what's causing your headaches." And I was like, yes, I was excited for a second. I go, "What?" And he says, "You've got brain aneurysms." And so I went from excited to actually confused because I didn't know what a brain aneurysm was at that time. And what it is it's where the arteries in our brain, the walls of them weaken and the blood flow, especially if you've got high blood pressure with a headache, they start to expand and you get these like bubbles, these berries, they call them berry-shaped aneurysms, and eventually they burst. It's called a rupture. And if you have a brain aneurysm rupture, the first thing that happens is a stroke. A high percentage of people don't survive, and the people that do survive have a lot of mental issues from surviving that stroke. It is 1 in 50 people in the US actually have brain aneurysms, which is really high statistic, and 30,000 people a year have a brain aneurysm rupture. Most people don't even know they have them. 50% of people with brain aneurysms have no symptoms at all. I was one of the lucky ones that had headaches and that I kept checking on them. So the headaches told me that I had them. And I was rushed in for surgery about a week later. I had brain surgery to fix those aneurysms. I ended up having 3, and I had 3 brain surgeries in 2024. So my life was extremely interrupted. Although I felt like I had courage for everything in life, boy, this one really tested me. I'd never been so scared in my life. This was out of my control. I was terrified. The night before my first surgery, I remember the what if I die? What if I have a stroke? What if I'm disabled and my husband has to look after me? And I felt all of those primal fear responses all at once. I mean, I was in fight. I was so angry. So why is this happening to me? I was so mad. And I was in flight. I wanted to run away, but I had no choice. I had to have that surgery to save my life. And I was in freeze. I was frozen on the bathroom floor, lying in a puddle of my own tears. I remember that moment like it was yesterday because it was just so powerful. And then I remembered what I teach my students to find courage. Rather than focusing on the what ifs, focus on the facts. What do we know to be true? And that's when I wrote my positive affirmations. I be brave, and I be strong, and I be lucky, and I be loved, and I be grateful. I am the storm. And I chanted that over and over and over again. I wouldn't let anything else in my brain until that anesthesia put me to sleep. I was chanting that while I was in the operating room and they were putting me to sleep. I was still chanting that. And it was such a powerful tool that we have, rather than letting our brains get into a hamster wheel of what ifs. Think about the facts. And when I woke up in ICU, it was a very spiritual moment. I was so grateful to be alive, and everything I seemed to be working. I still could count. I counted to 10. My husband came up and gave me a kiss on the cheek, and he handed me something really special. He handed me a kite, a little kite, the world's smallest kite. It was made out of tissue paper and toothpicks, this little kite. And I flew the kite over my head. It didn't take any wind to fly, just some movement. And I flew this kite because kites give me so much joy. And this little kite, it made me smile in this time of tragedy. And I realized that I'm still alive. I still have purpose. And even if I can't fly those big kites on the mountains and in the waves again, I can still fly this little kite, and I can still teach people. And I remembered something that Tony Robbins had taught me in my self-development training, which was, is there more knowledge in a library or a graveyard? And the answer was, there's more knowledge in a graveyard because people don't share it. And I'm like, I'm still alive. I still have a chance to share my knowledge, to leave it in a library. And I made a decision right there in ICU. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to speak on stages. I'm going to share my stories so that people can find hope in these stories, that things are possible. And I'm going to be a coach, not just of kite surfing and snow kiting, but of courage, and help other people find the courage to get through their tough times in life. And fast forward to today, and I mean, I'm only just over 12 months ago. Laurie, look, I've actually written two children's books. This one's Gail and the Red Kite of Courage, and that tells my true story of when I was a little girl. And this one is Gail and the Wind Warriors, and these are all the amazing women who came and helped me with my kite camps. And I'm speaking on stages. I spoke at Columbia University in New York recently. I just spoke at a stage in Seattle at the Fearless Women's Summit, and here I am today speaking with you, Laurie, and sharing my stories with your audience. So I am honoring that decision and that mission, and I'm just so passionate about it.
I feel like that's the second level of courage. Like, one is doing it, but then when you're faced with almost losing it, to have the courage to do whatever the next thing is. That's just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It's courage, but it's mindset, because we just don't bust out courageous. It's something that we work on. And like you mentioned, Tony Robbins and personal development. I'm just so touched by your story. I kind of don't know where to go next. First of all, what happened with the polar bear? Interlude.
Right, everyone's like, but what about that polar bear? I love that you circled round back to that, Laurie. What an incredible experience. So, believe it or not, it's midnight in a remote village in North Alaska, and the sun is about to set. Right, the midnight sun setting, and my friends and I decided we'd go out for a walk, and they took the dogs with them. We had dogs, and they said, Jennie, grab your kite. I was actually flying my kite at the time, which was amazing. The wind was terrible. The kite's like going up and down and crashing everywhere. We were told that we wouldn't see a polar bear that time of year. They're on the ice that time of year, but with climate change, they weren't out on the ice, they were on the land. But I'm flying the kite. One of my friends yells, bear, bear. And I look over and I see this polar bear charging towards me. As I said, I instantly dropped my kite, turned, and I'm running. And I see the backs of everybody else. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing the right thing. But don't we always say if there's a bear charging you, you don't want to be the slowest runner? Well, I was at the back. I was the slowest runner. And I remember the next thing, I fell flat on my face. I fell over and I couldn't quite figure out why at this point in time. And as I'm getting up, I'm looking over at the bear. The bear is now less than 200 feet away. And I got up to my feet and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this could be it. This could be it, Jen. And I realized that I was still attached to my kite. So when you're flying a kite, you have a leash on so that if you let go of the kite doesn't just blow away. It's attached on this leash. And so I had been running this way and the wind was blowing my kite the opposite way. And so my kite became like an anchor. And that's why I'd fallen over. So I realized I need to get that leash off, and it was Velcro around my wrist, and I'm trying to get this leash off, and I've got gloves on. And by this time, the bear is now about 100 feet away. I mean, I got the best look at this bear ever. I remember its big feet flopping. I remember looking in its eyes, and then I got the leash off. And the wind, my best friend, the wind blew my kite away, and the bear turned and chased my kite. My kite saved my life that day. It just shows you the relationship that I have with my kite. The kite saved my life. The bear chased the kite, giving me time to run away. And very, very quickly, somebody called Polar Bear Patrol, which are these guys on snowmobiles, and they have two guns in the back. And luckily, by the time they got there, my life was not being threatened, and so they shot fireworks at the bear, and the bear ran off. They went and got my kite. Everybody's like, what happened to your kite? And to be honest, I was hoping there were like claw marks in it so I could frame it on the wall, but the bear just sniffed the kite. I got my kite back, and I'm just so grateful that I survived, and I got such an amazing experience and story to share. But I'm also so grateful that the bear survived, because, yeah, if they had used bullets on the bear, it would have been devastating to me. I'm a huge animal lover. And as you can imagine, the polar bear is now my spirit animal. I feel very connected with the polar bears. That's what happened with the polar bear.
I love your children's books. How do we get those?
They are available on Amazon. You can find them if you put in Jennie Milton, or if you put in Gail and the Red Kite of Courage. It's a funny story, because when I decided I wanted to write a book, and I bet you there's a bunch of people out there thinking about writing books, right? And I had that fear of, oh, am I good enough? I didn't do well at English at school. When I told my brother that I was going to write a children's book, because I decided a children's book might be easier to start with, not as many words, right? I told my brother, I said, I'm going to write a children's book. And he goes, what are you doing that for? You don't like kids and you don't like reading. But here it is. It's a great story, and it really continues sharing these lessons of finding joy and finding courage with the younger generation, and also to the adults reading them. I get beautiful reviews. This book also tells my brother's story of losing his leg to cancer, and what we all, the siblings go through, the whole family goes through. I had an incredible illustrator who did such an amazing job. There's an illustration of my brother and I flying the kites together, and it says, Gail watched as her brother flew his kite with determination. He was hopping around with happiness, and she felt proud of him and of herself. They had both found courage in difficult times, and now they were soaring like eagles together.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm very proud I've been raising money for a children's cancer charity in Australia with the proceeds of this book. So it really is a passion project.
Oh, that is so wonderful. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you or work with you or coach with you, how do they find you?
You can find me at AdrenaJen, Adrenaline Jen. I've got I've got a Facebook page, AdrenaJen. I've got an Instagram page, AdrenaJen. You can find me at AdrenaJen.com is my kite flying website. Also, if anybody's out there that has an event or a stage, or they'd like me to come and speak to their teams, I work with both individuals one-on-one, but also I love speaking on a stage to teams and helping the whole company and business or group find courage, turn their pressure into progress.
Ooh, I like that. Pressure into progress. Well, Jen, this has been so wonderful. But before we go, you've given us so much amazing wisdom and insight and adventure. What is it you really want us to know?
I want you to know, when fear whispers, not you, not now, not yet, adrenaline says, watch me. Just watch me.
I love that. This has been so awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, Lori.
If you love this podcast, here's a big ask. Will you share with your friends and family, subscribe, give us a review, and a 5-star rating so that others looking to reinvent their lives will be able to get the help they're looking for? Thank you in advance.